I want to go here, Lieutenant Governor, and kind of dive into the economy a little bit, but do it this way, where you talked about the carbon capture piece, and somebody from Dakota Resource Council was like, big deal. As far as I know, though, North Dakota right now is the only state in the union that's actually doing carbon capture. So if you can help us better understand what exactly does that mean? I know Governor Burgum was at an event in Fargo recently and said, hey, this, you may not like it, but the Inflation Reduction Act was great for the state of North Dakota. Walk us through what's happening there, sir.
Yeah, what he means by that is that the tax credit that's available and that's available if you sequester carbon dioxide, it's higher now. It's $85 a ton, and it's $50 a ton if you sell it for enhanced oil recovery. And so that amount was increased in the Inflation Act. And so it's one of the few things that would have any sense of being positive to our state, as pointed out. But that one moves some projects forward because it's very expensive to build CO2 capture technology. But the companies that are doing it are doing this on their own, and they feel the value will be there. They won't, if there's such thing as a carbon tax ever comes our way, like they have in Canada, where it ends up being redistribution of tax proceeds based on your income level, because the carbon tax makes utilities cost prohibitive at the individual home level. So then the government has to help subsidize that, and they redistribute the carbon tax all around. But we don't want to get to that point. But if something were like that were to happen, the energy producers feel that it would make them basically, it'd be neutral to them if there was such a thing as a carbon tax if they're capturing the CO2. But also they're able to get more value for their product if it has a lower CO2 footprint from the man-made CO2. And then third, if there's a future for enhanced oil recovery in the state of North Dakota, we need to bring more CO2 from outside, because the CO2 that we produce is only 1% of what we would need to fully develop out the Bakken shale with CO2 as the enhanced oil recovery method. So it's something that's, it's just kind of mind-boggling for most people. You don't want to listen to it. It's something that you think is caving to the green side, and actually it's industry moving forward and turning CO2 into a product instead of a waste product. It's actually a commercial product that will be very valuable in the future for enhanced oil recovery in the Bakken. It's already being used for enhanced oil recovery in the Bowman, North Dakota area, in the traditional oil geology where there's pooled formations of oil, not in the shale necessarily. It's already being used there. It's already being used in Canada from the CO2 that we pipe to Canada from the Dakota gasification plant in Beulah, the coal plant. And so, I mean, it's already used for enhanced oil recovery, but we need a lot more CO2 in our Bakken to do that in the future. So it's a lot, but that's the thing about CO2 capture, what's happening. And it's voluntary on the part of these ethanol plants and gas plants and coal-fired power plants that are doing these projects. And, so the state ends up being, you say the state's one of the few that's doing these, and we're not the only place, but us and Wyoming are the only two that have primacy of regulation. We don't have to go to the EPA to do such a thing in North Dakota or Wyoming. We can regulate it ourselves. So the projects are happening faster in North Dakota than anywhere else, needless to say, because of that point.
Got it. If you're just joining us, Lieutenant Governor Brent Sanford with us today, talking about an energy presser that took place earlier today. I also want to jump into the economy. We've got a text coming in here, so thank you for this. It says, hey, energy equals independence. The World Economic Forum does not want people to be independent. That's where the war on energy is coming from. So there's one point of view. If you want to text into our new Chris Berg Show text line, thanks to super producer Chris Larson, you can do so by texting us at 701 203 2260. Again, 701 203 2260. Let's talk about the grid. You said Julie Fedorchak, and she is so well versed in the grid. It's incredible. But how concerned should we be about potential brownouts, blackouts this winter in North Dakota as you talk about the potential instability of the grid? You can speak to that, Lieutenant Governor, but also you mentioned Europe, and we know that obviously Putin can use energy as a weapon. I mean, if Europe was to go dark this winter, what would that mean for North Dakota and for America?
A lot of people die if you have Europe going dark, if you have areas that are really in a questionable grid stability concern right now, like Illinois. Illinois is the weakest point in the MISO grid as far as having the generation capacity on the days when the weather is not cooperating with solar and wind. And there's a lot of folks in Chicago that wouldn't take it well if there's no power for a number of days in a row. And that's obvious. And what Commissioner Fedorchik points out is we're very much at the end of our cushion that we used to have with excess nuclear and coal power generation. And then you threw a bunch of renewables on top of it with natural gas peaking plants, so you could have the weather dependent technologies and natural gas peaking plants, and so then the utilities were getting rid of coal plants because they're expensive compared to free wind and solar with all the tax credits attached, and then really cheap natural gas. Well, today we have the cushion is gone, is what Julie points out, and whenever she's speaking, that means that we don't have a lot of margin for error, and all the forecasting of how much wind and solar there will be, none of that works when the entire wind, the whole wind tunnel through the middle of our country, as Isaac Orr was pointing out from Center of American Experiment, goes away in the coldest part of winter, which happened in February of 2021. When that happens, there's not much you can do if you don't have a pile of coal beside a coal plant, or if you don't have natural gas ready to go with these peaking plants. And what happened in Texas was the natural gas didn't cover what it needed to. And so we had blackouts and brownouts. We're closer to that situation today. We've had brownouts and blackout events this summer in the MISO grid, which is the 17 states in the northern part of the country. And then the SPP is the other grid we're part of that goes down towards Texas. And so what she's saying, what Randy Christman, another PSC member from the SPP side, are saying is we're a lot closer than we used to be on having those events. And so hopefully we don't have to just keep having those brownouts and blackouts to wake up. But so far it looks like that's going to need to happen because the politicians then don't admit where it came from and the reason why. The reason why is we prematurely closed coal plants before we were ready to replace them with dispatchable resilient power. You can't replace 1,000 megawatts of coal plants. The coal power will be there every day with intermittent weather dependent green electricity if you don't have it firmed up with natural gas on the other side. So what we're doing to our grid is dangerous. It's scary, and people are not investing in nuclear power, which would be resilient as well. And the natural gas prices have gone so high that discourages more investment in natural gas to help out with our renewables. So she's pointing out that we've got to start paying attention to actually producing capacity that is needed on the coldest days, and assuming that it's cloudy and there's no wind blowing. So that's hard to do when you have too much of your grid reliant on those technologies.
Lieutenant Governor, I got 45 seconds left. I want to just ask you quickly your take on Harold Hamm buying back the public shares of Continental Resources and taking it private again.
He's bullish on oil. He's bullish on oil in North Dakota. He's the father of the Bakken, first one here innovating. It's a good sign for us. He sees a great future. He sees a need for energy dominance in the United States of America and in North Dakota. It's a good thing.
How much of it is because he knows the capital's drying up for fossil fuels as well? And he's like, look, if I can't get it from, the public banks or in public ways, then I'll just go through private equity.
He sees that Warren Buffett doesn't have to follow ESG if he has Burlington Northern and private shares. He shouldn't have to be as concerned about ESG if he's got his own equity in his own shares.
Thank you. That's exactly the path I think he sees. Is like, okay, this ESG game, I don't know if I want to play it. I got to figure out a way to mitigate